There's another real life game changers happening right now. Thank you. If you're watching us live, put hashtag live. If you're watching us on the replay, put hashtag replay. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to get a bit of traffic rolling forward. So me and Richard here, by the way, you guys are in for a massive treat tonight. If you want to find out about like what it's like to fail over and over again, you're looking at two people that have done that considerably over many years. But also you want to have a bit of hope here, you know, to get this thing rocking and rolling. So let's see. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there we go. So let's get this shared. I'm going to share this on my timeline. Let's get a few people pumping on here. I know there is a slight delay, but we're going to get this going because I think many people need to hear what is going on tonight. So as soon as you get a hold of this, then do comment and just let us know where you are in the world. So let us know what country you're in, let us know what city you're in, and what's going on for you. And then what I want you to do is tag a few people also, because tonight we're going to be talking about how do we fail many times and how do we go into different avenues of different things and then end up doing 20 to 30 million pounds worth of sales every single month, and it's only increasing as well. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, go hit share on that thing there. Yeah. So incredible. So this is what this is about. Yeah. This is about making it happen tonight. So let me just make sure we're getting this out there. So guys, do comment so we know that this is working.
It's popped up for me. Okay. I've got it to share.
Beautiful. Here we go. Let's get this shared across a few groups here. And yeah, make sure that people are getting a hold of what's going on here. So what we've got, real life with property investors, got some business channels, and we're going to start to make this happen, Richard. Yeah, oh, there we go. Right, a post. Let's get this out to some groups, shall we? And let's get this into the real life tribe as well. Yeah, very important to have a community, which Richard's going to also share with us as well. What's been happening. So thank you for joining us, Richard. Absolutely superb evening I expect to have here, because you're going to explain how we've really changed the game, how you have changed the game in the property market. So first of all, thank you for spending the time and putting your time out here and joining us tonight.
That's all right, mate. No worries. I'm glad to be here. So how do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, good. So like, just like, I always like to just start with what's the background, you know, like what was it like growing up and what was the turning point that got you into property investing?
Yeah. So from my side, I've been in property. My entry to property was work experience in school. Essentially, I did a week in an estate agent's at 15, and then spent the next 3 years working in a Chinese restaurant, believe it or not, in Chester. Which is brilliant. And then just literally randomly, the guy that owned the estate agents, drinking the pub next door to the restaurant I was in, popped in, said he had a vacancy for a trainee estate agent, aged 18, and I thought, fuck it, I'll take the job. Jumped in, trainee estate agent, got into property that way. Kind of really fell into place with me, valuing properties probably by the age of 19, 20, branch managers at that young age, probably, I don't know, one of the youngest branch managers around in Chester at the time, kind of running a team, listing properties, selling, everything was good. Then probably mid-20s, I got into, in those days, kind of sourcing was fresh and exciting, I think, in those days. And you could genuinely, I think things like rent to rent were out there, but it wasn't licensing, so you could take just a buy-to-let property and turn it into rent-to-rent income, sort of HMO income. And that was kind of all these property strategies were really in their sweet spot. Same-day remortgages, sale and rent back was big. There was an abundance of BMV deals out there. You know, genuinely, you could put an advert at the back of the paper, and you were getting maybe 30 or 40 phone calls every week. It was just insane. But I think I was a little bit naive to being able to raise my own money or go for myself. But in terms of structuring deals and being a sourcer, it was just ridiculous. So did that for a few years. Did a couple of flips. First flip that I did was up in Middlesbrough. Got involved in quite a few properties on the Wirral and Chester, and kept on progressing pretty well to the point where I opened up my own estate agents probably late 20s in Chester. Then I had an epic fail for probably the next 2.5 years, which we didn't even get a chance to speak about before we joined anyway. Then for 2.5 years, my life just absolutely fucked up on a huge scale, because my missus ran away with my son, and we had to sort of track her down and go through 2.5 years worth of custody battles, which in the end, I won the custody battle. We were rewarded shared custody. We got my son sort of 50% of the time. But what that cost me in a business sense was lost my business, lost all my money, essentially lost my marbles for 2.5 years. By this point, I was in London doing deals, doing developments in London, and just a complete catastrophe for a couple of years. Came out the other side of it, completely broke. Didn't have anything but my experience and a few sort of bumps on the road, and kind of I had contacts and experience from previously doing sourcing and sales. And 5 years ago, came out the other side of it. Well, this was probably 6 years ago. Started off my current company called the Property Advantage, which at the beginning, I'll be honest with you, it was more a case of professionalizing sourcing when I started it off, because as we all know, kind of property sources and the kind of the flurry of newbies coming in is a bit of a lack of professionalism or experience in the industry. So I set it up at first to try and be a little bit better, a little bit more professional on that side. But quickly within a year, I realised that the one thing lacking in the property sales market at that time, from what I could see, was a professional, consistent exit for HMOs, for landlords, because there's an abundance of, and maybe people watching this resonate, everyone knows where to find the properties. There's a lot of, from an investment point of view, there's interior design groups, there's interior design specialists, there's specialists on financing HMOs, finding the original property. There's quite a lot of well-known architects for HMOs that design them, planning experts. There's strategy experts that teach you how to sort of do it with none of your own money and JV and leverage and build portfolios with no money down and that kind of thing. But I noticed a few years ago that the one thing lacking in all of that was, well, when you've got a tenanted HMO, where do you then take that to sell? Because you can't take it back to the sourcer, because they're trying to get a deal for their investor, and they're going to not get a deal for the current landlord owning the property. Do you take it to an estate agent who doesn't really know much about HMOs? That's not their specialist subject. So I'm trying to bolt on to the back end of all of that value out there with regards to HMOs, trying to now the business is established and we're doing, hopefully a little bit ubiquitous amongst HMO landlords now, that we are able to start that conversation early with landlords and say, well, you might not even think that you're ever going to sell your HMOs, but the day will come, and this is how to prepare a HMO for sale. This is your buyer type. This is who you're probably going to sell to for how much money, so people can start to plan as part of their process or journey, if that's the word, that the exit is just as important as the entry. Because if you fuck up the exit and sell for 30, 40, 50 grand less than you could do, then running it well in the 5 years in between and buying good at the beginning, you wipe all that away by underselling at the end. So so that's kind of, I think, in terms of a game changer perspective, trying to coin onto that phrase, I really think that since all of my experience has culminated, and that's what I'm trying to focus on in terms of game changing that tiny little bit of the market that I'm trying to make a difference in.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for that. So I think there's plenty we've got to talk about here. So anybody who's just joining in now, do give us a comment. Let us know where you are in the world, where you are in the country. And what we're just about to delve into is, how do you go from nothing to now doing 20-30 million pounds per month in sales in your business? Yeah, so we're going to go into that technical stuff and what it's all about, to for portfolio building or selling as well. But let's just do the bit that kind of most people stumble over. So that part that you said, where your life, you said it was messed up. From there. So if you had your time again with now the knowledge that you have, do you think you would have handled it differently?
Yeah, I kept on going forward at 100 miles an hour, even though mentally I wasn't able to cope with stress at the time. So I just folded regularly at the time when pressure got too much from a business perspective, because I was so consumed. All of my emotional energy was consumed by the family court issue, that anything on work, and I was doing developments in London, any problem on site I would fold, and then I would sit in my car all day with anxiety and not be able to go to site or whatever it is. And I've been under much more stress actually than that with building this business, because obviously, you know, we've had COVID. I'm trying to build a business that, you know, we've gone way beyond size wise where I was previously now, but the stress I'm able to cope with. So the biggest thing, if I'd had previous knowledge, when things are getting on top of me in my personal life at that time, I wouldn't have kept pushing down with the accelerator in my business life. I would have known that, you know, this is the time to hold back. Let's just reassess and not keep on pushing and pushing if I wasn't mentally secure enough to kind of take on all of that stress. But then coming out of that, I think going out of business and cocking up in quite a big way, when we moved out of London with the family as a result of that, it was sort of about a week of feeling sorry for myself or something like that. And then, you know, you suddenly realize that your contacts that you had prior, the people that you know, the experience that you've got, doesn't really matter. You've got all of that pre-built experience. So I thought that I'd be coming back in, and I actually did. My missus said to me at the time, look, can't you just get a job and kind of like, you know, pack all this in? And I applied for a branch manager's job in an estate agent. Actually, this was about 6 years ago, and I've been self-employed for years, and you know, sort of perceived myself to be above kind of applying for a job ever again. Applied for a job, was accepted for the job, 40 grand a year or something like that. I lasted 2 days, and I thought, no, I've got to believe. So I just had that cast iron belief in myself that even though I'd royally fucked up previously, it was circumstantial. It was time and a place. I was trying to do developments, which is not my forte, and you've just got to ring fence that confidence and be like, you know, I am somebody who's entrepreneurial. That comes with failure and success and feast and famine until it clicks, and you've just got to accept that you know, my 20s it was like that, with a huge fuck up at the end, and then you lock in, but you don't lose any of that experience. And I didn't go all the way down to the employed branch manager rung of the ladder. I kind of, as soon as I clicked into thinking, okay, well, I'm going to launch the Property Advantage and bring in all of these things from my experience, I was still at the rung of the ladder where I'd left. And that was a big surprise to me, where all of my peers and people in my network, last year I sold a HMO for a guy that bought it off me 11 years before, you know, things like that. So he had no idea that I had this 2-year complete cock up in the middle. He just came back to me, saw me on Facebook or got my number or however we reconnected, and he said, oh, you know, the property I bought from you in Hall Street, I'm looking at reselling it now. And it just reminded me that, you know, you don't restart if you fuck up in business. You know, it's going to happen, because there's no career path for entrepreneurs. There isn't any. You know, a lot of what we do is just we make it up in the morning. I don't know if you've got a marketing team. We've got a guy that does all of our marketing and ad creation and design work, and I'll drive in the morning, come up with an idea for an episode of the podcast or for something to go on the website, and we're creating our own business and our own path, kind of thing. And that will come with, it doesn't come with a rule book, so you've just got to take the cock ups and not take them personally. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at with it.
That's the thing. So, like, part of what we do here as well, and what we want for people to get from this is, like you say, there are going to be cock-ups. There are going to be times that you got to go into another level of game, and you're winging it. Like, there's no, like, I know what to do. I know the exact steps and all the rest of it. And I think that's the difference to what you said. There are people out there, there's strategy. There's people out there that can teach you this, teach you that, provide you this service or that service. But one of the biggest things that does let people down is understanding, like, I've got to have the right mindset. Because mindset is
capacity to cope, and COVID has shown me that with a lot of our team that work for me at the moment, and just in general, even the landlords that I speak to on a daily basis, people's capacity to cope now has gone lower, is lower than it was pre-COVID. I think there's a lot of stress out there, and people are folding or unable to cope with a certain amount of stress. So simplifying things and choosing one or two things and being very, very good at them. If that's where you're at in your headspace, which is where I was at previously, that's what I do all over again. And since coming out of that, I've built a business now where I'm probably doing 10 things now, but while I was rebuilding for those few years after going out of business, I was very much simplifying things and only focusing on one or two things and doing them very, very well, rather than, I think one of the things I see people coming into property, new to property, I've got lots of, this was me previously in my 20s, where you learn sourcing, you learn rent to rent, you learn project management, you learn JVing, you learn doing flips, and you're trying to do everything because you're waiting for that one thing to land, and you end up being a busy fool, just constantly rushing around every strategy. And what tends to happen is there's a period of just finding your feet and cocking up and burning out and not really doing it well. And then I've seen this wave of sourcers and people in property probably 5 years ago, where they were all aiming to do one thing. Now, one of them owns an estate agent in Liverpool. One of them is a builder, project manager for other investors. One of them has gone off and done his own investing. And from all of them doing everything, they're now all just doing one thing very well. So I think that's definitely me as well. Just streamlining and focusing. And you can, once you've got a solid platform, then you can build from there. So yeah, not sure if anyone resonates with that.
Yes, absolutely. So like you said, like when yeah, you're right. When people go out there, I think it's almost a sense of panic, or like the enthusiasm drives like the scattiness and the chaos in the beginning. But then people are like either got a niche down on a particular thing, like you have, which is, the sales of HMOs and portfolios, and like all that exit strategy, or they've got to find like, where do I fit in the process and niche on that. Because what I find myself is like, I don't mind which strategy it is, and I've done a number of different strategies, but the way I approach it is like from a business point of view. So I take care of the business point of view. So my niche is the business aspect of it, not whether it's a flip, whether it's a HMO, whether we're doing a big conversion of 100 units. Like, to me, it's kind of, I'd like to say it's all the same. It's kind of all the same. Like it's the same piece.
I think you've stuck to what you're good at. And my mistake, I got involved in project managing build sites. I got involved in, sourcing properties fine, dealing with landlords, valuing property. All of that's my forte. But as soon as I carry that service on and start being a project manager, or start, trying to price up building work, or trying to get involved in other aspects of that role, then all of a sudden my USP disappears, and then I'm the worst person at that job. And whereas yours, what you've just explained is the processes at the back and running the business. A lot of people, I'm crap at running a business. That's not my forte. My forte is the front man, valuation, listing properties, the front marketing, the front end of a business. So I've identified that, and I've got people that can run the business in the back that I trust to enable me to be constantly on the road, constantly at the front. And it's knowing where you fit in that business model, really. And very few people have got all those boxes ticked. Which is a hard learning curve. If you either learn through experience the right way or the wrong way, that you don't carry all of the aces.
Yeah, but even if you do have all those boxes ticked, I mean, there's got to become a point where like things have to separate. Like, you can't take it.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to do the 4x100 meter relay by yourself. Like,
it's true. Yeah,
there's got to be a time that you pass on the baton. It happened even today, where like, one of the businesses that we run here, we have a group of people that like everybody in the entire company gets together. But today we decided it's become a time now. We're too big for that. Like, we've got to start. You guys have got to go and do your own thing, because accounting is very different from marketing. So you guys have got to go over there, and it takes a certain amount of trust, and it takes like say all these business systems.
Well, learning to delegate, learning to trust people, getting the right people in. And then it leads into bringing out new skills that, I feel like I have been a good delegator, and the team enjoy working for the company. But once you get 13, 14, 15 people in the company, then, most of my day job now, I wake up, apart from being on the road and visiting properties and running the business in that respect, 7 o'clock in the morning, there's 2 members of staff have texted me with their personal life every morning. You're dealing with staff issues, people off, people leaving, people joining, and then you find yourself running an operational business, which is good because you've got the business to a certain point, but then like you say with that 100x4 relay, you then become incapable on a time basis to run all the different compartments of the business. So then you've got to choose the right people, delegate, and know that you've got a sustainable business that you can pass on to other people to help you. Which even that is really hard. I mean, I had a business partner for the last 2 years, and she quit in February just without any notice. She just left the company. So, having that, resilience that you can carry on, and you're backing yourself to carry the business forward. That's something that I didn't have that previously, and I went out of business. But now, the last 5 years, everything that's thrown at me with the pandemic and business partners leaving, staff leaving, or whatever it is, you learn to be resilient, and you learn to sort of, dare I say, almost enjoy the challenges now, because it's a good place to be. There's a bit of pressure. Hopefully, trying to build yourself to be known for something, and build yourself for being known to be in a certain niche. It comes with pressure that you've got as well, because people expect things from you. But you wouldn't choose that path if it wasn't something that you enjoyed.
Yeah, and I think you've brought up a valid point, and this is something that a lot of people do not get. Yeah, or like it has to smash them in the face so many times before they actually get it. And that is, things are definitely 100% going to go wrong. Like that's one thing that is inevitable. I don't think anybody could say that, yeah, everything was perfect. Yeah, so like when things go wrong, I believe this now shows you who you really are. Like, do you start complaining? Are you pointing the finger? Do you go out of communication? Do you disappear? Do you bury the head in the sand? Do you start going off in a different direction and say, well, you know what, this wasn't for me anyway? Or like, do you face the music and, like you say, have that mental capacity to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Like, I'm going to make it work. Just because it didn't work on this occasion, I've got to figure it out. And this is what I like, the difference between life and the casino. In the casino, if you go all in, soon enough, you're going to be having to leave. Yeah, in life, it doesn't work like that. You go all in, even if like you lose that hand, you can just reload and go all in again. And there's no limit. Like, there's literally unlimited amount of times that you can go all in life. The question is, are people willing to do that when it's time to face the music? So anyway, you have done that. Yeah, so it was time to face the music. Staff leaving, business partners leaving. I know that can be detrimental to what we perceive as like having the things around.
You get used to it being the norm of business. And I think I speak to a lot of HMO landlords, and landlords in general, and there is a feel-good factor around finding the properties, developing the properties, the 100 miles an hour to get to that certain portfolio size, or to get to that owning or controlling all of that is the exciting bit. And then a year in, 2 years in, 3 years in, then you've got a choice to make. Do you want to be a landlord, and do you want to actually keep this income coming in? A lot decide to go on to develop and move out of being a landlord, because the thrill of creating, designing, filling, all of that new front end stuff is different to being a landlord. They're two different things. So there's a lot of people that actually decide to stay in and keep these properties for the long term. They're doing what I've done with my business, where they accept the imperfections. So the other day, I put the team on a little bonus, because I said that we've got 600k to bring in between now and the end of August, and I said, look, if we hit within 10% of that, there'll be an X amount of bonus for the 4 people involved in that project. Had a great meeting about it. It was all high motivation. Following day, one of those 4 people said, I didn't want to say anything, but here's my notice. I'm leaving the company to go and be a mortgage broker. And I was like, just literally had the best meeting ever. We're going to get this money, and it's like, probably 2 years ago, I would have taken that really personally, because when you're a very small team, you've got personal attachment to, things. And the same with portfolio landlords. That, you've got to just accept that shit will happen running and owning properties just as much as shit will happen running and owning a business. And you almost become resilient to these In the reality, him leaving is not going to change the course of the business. It might mean we might do 500 rather than 560 because it'll have an impact on some of his completions coming through or whatever. But it's not. It doesn't change the way that the cruise ship's going on the ocean type thing. It's not going to take me off course. Just and these little hiccups or little challenges, they are daily, but you just have to smile and get on with it. And just no one cares about my business as much as I do, and no one cares about yours as much as you do. And once you get over that fact, it's kind of quite an easy process from there. You just sort of, you just enjoy the ride.
Yeah, and it's what's very interesting is I was actually thinking about this the other day. I was like, what is it that make people believe that that's the thing that's okay to do, like be a business owner or be a CEO for someone else, or be an MD for someone else, or be a leader in some way for someone else, or just work for someone else? Like, what is it? And I was thinking about it. I was racking my brain, and I thought, and I actually came with a little mechanism to help myself like deal with challenges and things that come up. And I'm just like, that is the belief system accepting that I can handle that. So that's that person saying, well, I can handle working for someone else. Maybe they say to themselves, and I leave it all there and I go home and I don't have to worry about it. A business owner says, well, actually, I want to be in control of my life. I want to work when I want to work and all of that stuff. So
I like providing for people. I like having a team that, I'm supporting, and I like the responsibility of having this business. I like the fact that I've brought a lot of the team in. I mean, there's one member of staff in particular who joined us who never opened a laptop. Now she's emailing and ringing clients directly. There's the growth in the core team that they join you, and you train them up, you build them. All of that, without trying to be corny, is part of the natural instinct of the character of someone that wants to lead and be at the front. And you can take on life's challenges without a comfort blanket. There's the different mentality, because the people that apply for jobs with me, they want the comfort of a pay slip, and they want the comfort of that structure. And some of them, my balance is balancing out between, you want someone ambitious and someone with a little bit of fizz about them. But the very ambitious, they may be doing what I did when I was out of business. Just their circumstance in life, they'll apply for a job, be there for 2 days, and then set themselves up again. So there's a balancing act between kind of ambition, but it's perfectly fine for lots of people to want that structure and comfort and most of my team, they want to know their long-term progression. They want to have clear goals. They want to feel, wanted and have a structure. But for me personally, and most people listening to this, I'm completely unemployable, number one, because if I go into a company, I'll either start a revolt immediately and tell them that the management system's shit and I can do it better than everyone. That was what I used to do in my 20s when I take a job on. You probably might be the same. You turn up and you're a complete liability. Everyone either loves you or hates you within 5 minutes because you're just an absolute troublemaker, because you're just an absolute unemployable idiot that turns up. And that's basically the fundamentals for myself. I'm too entrepreneurial. I like the sound of my own voice too much. I like giving advice, and I like being at the front of something, and therefore I can't accept working for someone. That's just in my nature. It just doesn't line with me, and that's got me in trouble in the past because, treated in the wrong hands, that kind of young craziness about that kind of character trait, can go down one way, essentially just a young show off causing trouble, and then once you mature a bit, get more responsibilities, have a few ups and downs, then you can channel that and be responsible for the people around you and enjoy being a provider, which is where I'm at currently.
So like, if someone, like, what advice do you have for someone who's like, I want to get into, because what you've done essentially is you've got into property, and then what you've done is found like your home, like you found your niche, you found like what you love doing, and you've been able to build a whole system, a whole business around it, a whole revenue stream. So like, what would your advice be for someone going and saying, property is like a vehicle I want to get involved in? It's obviously one of the highest demand things in the world. So like what would your advice be on like them?
I think well, two angles to it. First of all, choose who you get into bed with carefully, I think would be the first thing, in terms of if you've got a little bit of cash and not much knowledge, That's even more dangerous than where I was probably 6 or 7 years ago with no cash, but quite a lot of knowledge. I think there's a lot of people I see coming to property with a bit of money, and they maybe start going down that kind of get rich quick scheme sort of side of things, where, you know, that does work for a small percentage of people that come in, and then they can become the kind of the front of their own structure and their own, you know, you can go in with not much money and you can build a portfolio and you can be successful and it can be stress free. And the strategies that are out there, they all on paper work. The weak point, as I've proved, is people's own ability to translate that strategy into reality. You know, and that starts at the very beginning with, you know, rushing in and, you know, JVing with the wrong people. I mean, from my HMO sales perspective, half of the HMOs we sell are landlords choosing to sell on their own terms. So they might be retiring or going into development, or they've just got, you know, a decent offer or valuation. But 50% of the properties we sell are for landlords selling for reasons that are out of their control, or they didn't want to actually sell. So they might have had a down val, but a lot of it is business partner split and JV partnerships going wrong. You know, that's a huge portion of the people that sell HMOs. So even just bringing that from a granular level up to what we're talking about, there's too much emphasis on doing things 100 miles an hour in property, and that you get extremely educated people in their own chosen field. You get doctors, GPs, you know, you get you know, all these professionals work in the city, and they're very educated, but then they'll go and give 40 grand to Jack in his bedroom in Leeds, who's a sourcer, who's never done a deal in his life, and Jack just goes and pisses that money up the wall. It's like, how have you gone from a knowledgeable, experienced leader in your own business to being an absolute weapon and giving this idiot 40 grand? There's just this necessity to just kind of hurry up and do things quickly in property. So I think at the front end, due diligence is the biggest thing, you know, making sure that, you know, what you are doing, if you're going into ownership of property to run as, you know, to be a landlord and to own property, we tell most new investors that come in, buy a 4-bed HMO. It's not going to make you a millionaire, but it'll stop you fucking up the 15-bed conversion that you're tempted to do. Because a lot of people, they rush into sui generis HMO conversions. You know, they'll go into the big commercial to ready developments as a new investment. They'll do it because they're chasing the commercial refinance, because they've, you know, the sui generis 7+, but they've never been a landlord before, and they've just come in, they've got a bit of capital, they've put it up with a few people, and here they go on this huge development. And the success rate of those, I mean, I see the majority of those that I see have cocked up. They're really hard to run, or they sell them too quickly because they haven't got experience of running tenants.
But is that fair to say you're going to see the ones that cocked up because of the nature of your business?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Yeah, it is. But that's also the nature of educators' business, to talk about the ones that are successful. So, you know, you've got to have both voices in the industry. There's a guy called Craig who's a good friend of mine, and he was on a well-known training company, you know, probably the most well-known training company in the UK, saying no names, and he was on their deal packaging mentorship program, and he didn't do a single deal for about 9 months. And then I got to know him prior to that, and through that sort of situation. After 9 months, he brought HMO to me to sell, so I offered him a fee split when we used to do fee splits, and he earned 1,750 quid off a fee split from a HMO that I sold. Then he went to the you know, they do the monthly get-togethers at the headquarters, and he got pulled on stage, and he said, and the guy who did the deal packaging event said, "Oh, Craig, come up, Craig. Craig's our, you know, one of our shining stars. He's made 1,750 quid this week. He's done amazing," because there were all these new people in the room. And Craig rang me on the way home and went, "Oh my God," like they just latched onto this one deal he'd done in 12 months, but they didn't talk about the 11.5 months where he's lost money, he hasn't done a single deal, and they just focused on one deal that he did as a fee split. They didn't even mention the fact that he only earned half the fee, and I'd sold it. You know, and you've got that in front of newbies. So that room there are probably 100 people listening to Craig's story about Craig earning 1,750 quid, and the other 59 people in there who have just gone there on day one will be looking, thinking, right, off I go. I'm going to do the same, you know, and it's dangerous. It's a real dangerous situation. So, and I've said this quite a few times. I do see more problems than most, but there's a responsibility from my side to also counterbalance the argument and say you don't have to rush if you don't feel the need to. Some people can cope with rushing, and you know, you can, and other people that I meet, you know, you see them and they've got. I meet some people. There's a few of mine that I'm thinking about now where within 2 years they've got an amazing portfolio that's operating completely brilliantly, and there are people that can cope with that level of scale and that level of success and maintain it. But it is fair to say that the vast majority can't cope with that pace and aren't cut out for that amount of growth and also that amount of leveraging.
So the question is, because I know you said in the beginning, you said, yeah, you didn't get into education or anything like that all through your 20s. So did you have any like coaching or mentoring now being in, you know, business the second time around or not?
No, it's something I might consider it. I've just brought an ops director into the business, and she's done coaching for businesses. She's scaled businesses. She works as like corporate structuring and exit plans, and she's done quite a lot of growth plans for much bigger businesses than mine. And she's come in as ops director of the business employed, and that's going to be really valuable because that's somebody in-house. I've got people in the industry. Funny enough, one just emailed me now, but there's people that I've met over the years that are doing it right, doing it properly, that I will go and meet them and have a coffee or a beer and use as a soundboard quite regularly. But in terms of a structured mentorship program, no, I've not. It's definitely the school of hard knocks for me.
Yeah, those what you're saying there, bringing in like creating a board of directors. That's exactly what we're doing now, building resorts. Because I have no idea about hotels, gyms, or restaurants.
Right? Yeah.
That's what these resorts are. So we need to bring those people in. That's a given. But even that, I got the guidance, and I'm still getting the guidance from like a business mentor and coach to help me go through all of that.
Yeah.
But also, like one of the first businesses that really kicked off for me, because I failed a lot of times, like you. Tried to start a business just before 2008 and like doing extensions and, you know, like those kind of small type of jobs. But then nobody was doing work and all of that. But then I found myself in the IT industry, and then I built two companies from nothing to multi-million-pound companies. But that was literally like 90 to 100 hours a week, like kind of the Will Smith philosophy. Like if we're both running on a treadmill, you know, I'm either gonna, run longer than you, I'm gonna die running kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And I thought that's what I was gonna do for the rest of my life. But it wasn't until I tapped in. One of the first people that ever got me to separate with money was Grant Cardone. I don't mind saying it, you know, because the guy's I believe is an absolute beast. And
I think is that the American guy?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's an absolute beast. Yeah. So anyway, once I got into that, my learning curve cut so quick. I was just like, whoa, why have I been messing about? And then when I have since then scaled 7 businesses from nothing into the millions, like it has been, like you say, some people can cope with it, but like I don't think I ever would have coped with it without like, you know, the training or I've done some quite deep spiritual development as well.
What I tend to find in property is that which reminded me of what you said, an IT business, we get a lot of people that come to us as business owners. So there was a guy that's coming, he owns a huge recruitment business, and he's coming as a cash buyer, a couple of £1 million looking at property. And you get a lot of successful people in industries where, you know, you can predict sales, you can predict trends in that industry, you can predict the way the business is going to grow. Then they come into property, and ultimately property is about people, not about spreadsheets. And that's the biggest difference with property and any scaling any other business, really. So you've people in terms of, you know, the builders, the developing, you know, managing builders, managing the process. You've suddenly got highly processed, highly methodical, educated, wealthy people dealing with unreliable builders, and they can't compute and they can't relate, and their heads explode. And that's the first, and then, you know, the people goes to the tenants. So then you've created it, you've gone through that process of thinking, oh my God, why isn't everyone's brain like mine? You know, I work in London, I work in the city. We're very process driven. This is how it works. And then you try passing that mentality on to a team of builders in Derby, it just doesn't work. And then you know, then you get through that process. Then you end up with the 6-bed HMO in Derby. Then you've got 6 blue collar tenants, three from Poland, 3 from the northeast, and then you're trying still to, you know, compute how you run a business and how you expect people to behave with a completely different demographic of person.
You know, you just reminded me, and I've seen it so many times because we train hundreds of people, you know, to do this very well. And I always tell them, there is gonna be problems. We ain't here to teach you how to do it when it's going well. You know, like my daughter, 12-year-old daughter, can do it when it's going well. We're here to give you the frameworks that you can fall back on when, not if, but when it goes wrong, because it just does. You know, it just does. Like we've had one project we had that was delayed 18 months. I paid 36 grand extra in interest, just the interest alone. Forget the lost money, you know, elsewhere. I didn't even want to look at that. But it's like, how do you deal with it when all that's going on? And then because you got to imagine, then there's a whole host of people that's like, see, I told you shouldn't have got involved in that. And it's like they start like eating away at your little voice that was always there anyway.
I think knowing that you're if you do the right thing, and if you constantly and I did the wrong thing when I was in London, and I robbed Peter to pay Paul a few times, and I badly managed my money because I was spiraling out of control because I wasn't coping with the family court side of things, and it was just, I made a series of wrong decisions, which is why, you know, I'm not going to repeat that process ever again. But I've had issues prior to that and since with the property advantage, where a situation will occur where something wrong happens, or it doesn't have the desired outcome that you were hoping for, but you'll still repeat the same processes next time because you're doing the right thing, and it's, you know, it's circumstantial with why things have gone wrong. And as long as you're true to the people around you, true to the people you're borrowing money from, I get a lot of landlords that have said, look, I'm selling this at a loss out of my own pocket. I meet one of them tomorrow who has, you know, regularly sold a deal and had to take money from their own pocket to pay a JV person back that they've promised this certain amount of interest, and go again and believe in themselves and know that they're going to catch up and make that, because the opposite is admitting failure and having a bad debt on your hands and not fulfilling what you promised with people, you know. So I think, you know, you can take ups and downs, and you can take things that haven't gone, so long as you're true to yourself and you're true to the people around you, and you know, and I do think you've got to have confidence in your overall business model and where it's heading. You know,
I think you've said it expertly, because you just remind me like this ongoing situation right now, because we have a construction company under our brand also, and like we literally, and this sounds like, in business terms, this sounds so stupid, but in a way it kind of fits with what you just said, which is like, you got to do the right thing, and we have actually paid money to do someone's job. That's how it's worked out in the end, because it's like, look, we got to make sure that the product is produced at the end of the day, and it's cost, like we literally paid to do someone's job.
Yeah, and reputation, and admitting that as well, you know, and you know, talking about that openly as much as talking about the successes openly. And one of our biggest sort of, you know, and it does crop up in the office, because, you know, we'll get a property that comes in and the team will go, wow, fucking hell, have you seen this one on Instagram? Look at this property that we've been asked to sell. And it's like the most amazing. And these people have done tours of the property. They've actually raised other money off the back of it because they're so successful. Everything. And then we get it on board, and it's like 20% occupancy, couldn't refinance it, bad debts coming out. You know, I had a phone call, probably maybe January this year or something like that. It could have even been last year. And he goes, "Is that the property advantage?" Like this on the phone, this Irish guy. And it was a fucking Cayman Islands number. And he goes, "Is that the property advantage?" And I was like, yeah. And I said, "What the fuck?" He goes, "You're selling such and such property." And I went, yeah. He goes, "Tell me exactly where it's up to, exactly who's offered, exactly what the situation is." And I was like, right, I've got to refer to the landlord here, that, you know, because who are you, sort of thing. And he says, "I'm the one that they borrow money off, and they owe me £1 million or whatever it was, 500 grand, and they've breached their terms. They're not paying. So we've had the bad debtors of high-profile HMO landlords. Those properties are all over Instagram, all over everywhere, and we're fielding phone calls from angry investors in the back, and they're saying they're still going on Facebook, pumping adverts out saying, "Your money's dead in the bank, give it to me," but they've not previously solved the one from the previous project. So essentially, they're just starting a Ponzi scheme. And we see that. I wouldn't say it's as extreme as daily, but that's the sort of shit that I see, because people have to exit these properties, and they can disclose it from me. I can turn up to a portfolio and visit the portfolio, and it can be fine. I can go and have a look at it, and everything's friendly. But at some point, ultimately, you realise that these people are in the shit. And like what you've just done, just admit it. Get your problem sorted on that one particular development. Ring fence it, deal with it properly. Be honest with the people around you, and carry on the same process. Everyone gets a duff deal, or everyone has a deal that you haven't managed to pay people back on, or you've had to put money in your own pocket. But that's it. That blind, I'm going to be successful no matter what, put in public on social media. That's quite dangerous. And I've seen. And I wouldn't like to get another phone call from that guy from the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, and I suppose it depends on the intention behind, because like if they're I suppose if we took many of the successful, what we perceive as successful entrepreneurs from wherever, right, and ask them, like, tell me about all the stuff you messed up, I'm sure they'd have a long string of it. But I also have this kind of mindset, is like, I want to focus on the good, but I will always clear up my mess. Like I'll never just say, yeah, leave it, I'm nothing to do with it. I'll always clean that up.
But the good is the challenges. The challenges are good, man, because like I said at the beginning, if you've got
shapes you.
Yeah, it does. If you've got the ability to cope and go again and steadily grow, I've constantly thought that the property advantage is going to kick off like that, and we're going to be multi-million, because the idea is there and what we're doing is there. But it is very much over the last 3 years, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and sometimes 2 forward and 2 back. But you've got that inertia in the business where there's sometimes frustrating growth, but it's steady growth. It's only 5-star reviews, and it's only a good, hopefully you're doing the right thing by, you don't always sell every property, but you're steadily going forward in the right way. And it isn't as fast paced as I was expecting or predicting. And I've had many false dawns of it setting fire, and really going. And maybe it might go again, it might just suddenly kick off soon again, but you've just got to accept that steady growth and doing the right thing is absolutely fine. And I've accepted to myself, there's always going to be someone out there who's got more money than me, but there's going to be more people who have got less money, and that's one of the things that is really, I've started using it as an anecdote constantly. There's somebody that works for me, and obviously no names. We get fruit to the office every Wednesday. So a hamper of fruit comes from the local greengrocer. I brought it. I've done it since COVID. And this person, it was her first week, and she took a punnet of strawberries and asked if she could take them home. And she's bought strawberries for the last 18 months, but she's only been able to afford to give them to her daughter rather than she's not eaten a strawberry for 18 months. So she's bought a punnet of strawberries. Her daughter's had them, and she hasn't been able to afford to eat strawberries. And I was so gobsmacked, because this person, she lives in the same part of town as me. You look at her, she's just, middle class, a normal person. And people out there are choosing to eat strawberries themselves or give it to their kids, who, we're not talking kind of, food bank, poverty stricken, as they say on the news, this kind of lazy, drinking cider in the afternoon and not, and they're on the gyro type people. We're talking normal folk are making life decisions where they're having to do without. So you've got that kind of built in you where I'm chuffed to be having a business where, things are going okay and we're building slowly. And I think kind of being aware of that and being quite humble with the fact that, it's not a race to be the biggest millionaire in the world. It's, it's slow and steady growth from my perspective, and doing the right thing is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, it's, I'm driven by impact, but also it's fun. Like some people laugh, or some people think I'm even joking and not being serious, but it's like orgasm. Like, we ain't in a race to get to the end of that.
I've never had one. What's one of those?
Yeah, well, that's a different channel. Yeah, but it's like you got to enjoy the process, and actually that's what I love. I love the process. You know, I love the process, and in fact, if I ever remember a time I was like, oh, when I get to there, that's when I'm going to be happy. I never was. Like,
Yeah.
never worked out that way anyway. But I've got a question for you. You know, so HMO sales, but like, you know, all of these places that you're selling them and these people that are investing in this, do you ever like forward fund bigger projects as well? Is that the type of thing that you guys are into?
No, we've got so one of the things that we're looking at doing at the moment is partnering with somebody who is doing quite a lot of developments, and they raise private finance. We get quite a big, so if our investors at the front end, I don't want anyone to touch them because I want them to buy our HMOs. So, you know, we've got investors, you know, in Asia or the Middle East or in Europe or whatever it is. We get approached quite regularly for people saying, oh, you know, can I approach your database and ask for funding for my next development project? You know, my answer to them is I leave those alone because I want those to buy the HMOs that I've currently got on stock, because at the moment I've got more stock than investors. That's always the way with HMOs because there's just too much stock out there. So, you know, my primary focus at the front end is to get there, the sole purpose. But what we do have the potential with is when we exit for landlords and when we exit for HMO owners, a lot of people have been in it for 10 years. They might have had 6 or 7 HMOs. A lot of them are in the southeast where they bought cheap kind of 10 years ago in certain places around, you know, I don't know, Medway or, you know, sort of places in Kent or places in Essex. And there's been a huge capital appreciation. So we sell their portfolio and they're sat on 2 or 3 million quid in cash quite often. And they don't want to deploy that cash back into property and be a landlord, but they're happy to keep using that cash. So that potential, our seller, when they've exited and they've completed and they're sat on quite a lot of cash, that's a potential market that we're looking at. And there's a few people that I know and trust that I could approach and they could utilize their funds to sort of, you know, use into some of their developments. But I'll never take money for that on a referral basis. That will just be, look, I like them, I like you, do you want to have a chat? I'm not involved kind of thing, because the minute I charge a fee or try and broker a situation where someone lends someone money, it's I don't even want to go there. But yeah, there's quite a lot of, there's money at the back end. People sell HMOs because they're tired of being a landlord a lot of the time and they're tired of running, but they don't want to leave property. So then they're looking at fixed term lending essentially.
Yeah.
So there's millions of that at the back end. Yeah.
Absolutely, there sure is. So like I've got a couple of questions because we've got to get this wrapped up, because tonight we actually have an open property mastermind where you know, we invite people into our community. Normally it's closed, but every so often we open it up, and that is tonight. So I am going to be there. So we do have to wrap this up, but also it's kind of fitting the way this has gone. You know, you wear your heart on your sleeve. I love the way you talk, or in this case you wear your heart on your hat as well.
Oh yeah.
But but yeah, like this is a no BS kind of talk, and that is exactly what we'll be doing this Saturday as well. So I'm going to drop the link in there for people who want to get started without all the BS. And I like this language, and maybe you could feature sometime at one of the events and come and like it's very fitting. We very often just say, look, it's going to go wrong. You better learn what to do when it goes wrong. Forget it going perfectly right. You know, go read a book if you want that, or go to, you know, some other places.
Just need to surround yourself by honest, decent people, because, you know, if you've got a support network and something goes wrong and the rest of the group are honest and decent, but as we know, there's sharks out there that don't care if it goes wrong for you because they've got your money, and that's the risk. But you know, with your network and with the other networks that I know are doing a good job, there's a safety net of support with honest people, and that's the difference.
Gotta be the way. So I got one more question to ask you that's super important. But before we do that, I want to thank you for coming on here, sharing the no BS kind of no nonsense talk and telling people as it is. And we always say, if we can just like change the trajectory of one person, it's been worth it. But I think many people will see this with all the places where we're going to pull it. So thank you so much.
That's all right, Mark. No worries,
Richard, for doing that. Great stuff. So here's a question. We always ask ourselves this question in our community, and that is that we can never, ever, ever let people forget that they must do the right thing for the right reason. Now, why is that?
Is that the question? Why do you do the right thing for the right reason?
Yeah. Why is that? Yeah.
It's sustainability. It's that creates sustainability. That creates kind of trust. That creates honesty with people. Am I on the right lines?
Yeah. Wow. It's your answer.
Yeah. I think, doing the right thing constantly over and over again, the sustainability in a company and sustainability in your character and and the trust that people put in you, because wherever you are in property and whatever you're doing, in my role or your role, or if you're just coming in to be a landlord and own and develop properties or whatever it is, at some point people are trusting in you, to perform and to be that leader. And there are very, very easy ways to manipulate that trust in property. So I think that doing the right thing constantly will give you longevity in the business. The biggest gripe, these entry level strategies like sourcing or rent to rent are taught as do it for a certain amount of time because you can build a pot of money, then you can go into something else. So you've got an industry of people that aren't there for the long term by nature of that training. So they don't really care if they're charging fees for properties that don't exist or charging fees for properties that aren't compliant, because they're there to make money, then go and invest in their own properties. So, that's the problem. So by nature of just doing the right thing over and over again, you will win the sustainable day and you'll get a decent long-term network. Is that my chicken fried rice arriving? Is that what it was? What was that? Yeah,
that was all the people cheering your answer.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, okay. I've got my delivery was about 4 minutes away, so it works perfectly.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so we've got to wrap this up very quickly. So we can add it to the reel. I always love to get everybody's angle of why I do the right thing for the right reason. But can you add to our reel? And when I say, ask that question again, the answer is because that's the only way to discover your true potential. Can you do that?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Let's add it to the reel. So you must do the right thing for the right reason. Why is that?
Because it's the only way to discover your true potential.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Richard.
All right, mate.
Everybody watching, you've been awesome tonight. So let's give that round of applause and we'll see you next time.
Have a nice evening, mate. Enjoy.